Cannabis is being rescheduled, psychedelics are entering clinical trials, and everyone's talking about legality. But not enough people are getting it right. And not enough of us know what the real risks are of entering these spaces in this in-between era. Hey, I'm Morgan Davis. I'm a health and wellness attorney based in Raleigh, North Carolina. Let's talk about how to keep your business protected and thriving. As an attorney practicing in health and wellness, especially alternative health and wellness industries, I help companies, founders, innovators, entrepreneurs navigate the gray space that exists in cannabis, psychedelics, and many other alternative wellness industries. We're going to talk today about what's coming up in 2025 and what it really means when we talk about legality of these industries. Everybody's heard about the fact that the DEA is going to reschedule cannabis. Now, what does rescheduling mean? What does legalizing mean? Rescheduling means changing the schedule that cannabis appears under in the Controlled Substances Act. Currently, marijuana falls under Schedule 1. To reschedule, they would remove it from Schedule 1 into Schedule 3. What does that mean? Schedule 3 means it would become legal for it to be sold as a medical product or a medical component. It does not mean that it's fully legalized in the sense of I can go anywhere with it and buy it anywhere and consume it anywhere and take it with me everywhere and I can never get in trouble. It would be considered like many of your prescription drugs, right? If you get hydrocodone prescribed to you by your doctor after some surgery and you're ever carrying it with you, under the law of most states, you have to carry it in a prescription bottle with your name on it, with the prescription. You can't carry, say, your sister's prescription, and I can't tell you how many of my clients have found themselves in a situation where they're charged with a felony because they're in possession of somebody else's prescribed drugs. Or worse, they've got some pills free floating in their pocket and they say, well, it's my prescription, and the law enforcement officer says, where's the bottle? This would be the same thing. Marijuana would basically be taken from a Schedule 1 where it currently has no recognized permissible use to a Schedule 3 where there would be a permissible use. It's not legalization. It is partial normalization, and it does open the door for more structured FDA-style regulation and businesses that are health and wellness businesses that operate in the pharmaceutical or medical space to potentially be providers of marijuana. Psychedelics. Everybody's talking about psychedelics. Psychedelics are like a very broad term, right? Mushrooms, MDMA, entheogens, they all can fall, LSD, they can all fall under this category. Right now, most of the time when we're talking about psychedelics that are entering clinical trials or some gray space or potentially legal space, it's going to be psilocybin, MDMA, or ayahuasca, DMT, peyote, some of the entheogens that are more commonly associated with spiritual practice. The ones that are entering clinical trials are often psilocybin and MDMA. Almost all of the applications currently with the FDA are under these two substances. Again, like marijuana, they currently exist in Schedule 1, and the idea is that they should be moved to Schedule 3 or some other schedule with a recognized medical use. On the flip side of that, or maybe a completely different side of that, really a totally different coin, ayahuasca, DMT, peyote, the spiritual entheogens, or the entheogens that are most often associated with spiritual practice, and asterisk doesn't mean psilocybin and MDMA cannot be associated with spiritual practice. They certainly can, and there are plenty of people who would like to and want to and do use them for spiritual practice. But generally, when we're talking about entheogenic churches, we're talking about churches who want to use sacrament that is made from DMT or peyote or something along these lines. That method of use, or that general way of using or legalizing, does not have to do with rescheduling. It has to do with saying that in my spiritual practice, I use a sacrament that involves this controlled substance. And under the First Amendment, it is under my religious freedom, it was my right to religious freedom to use said sacrament. And doing so is not a violation of the law. So the statement is, we don't care where you're scheduling it. All we care about is that you recognize our right to religiously use the sacrament in the way that fits within our practice, and we cannot be held criminally, civilly, or otherwise liable for said use. Businesses of all types and organizations of all types are launching into these industries involving psychedelics. Clinics, churches, nonprofits are launching into what is a very gray area. The biggest legal risk is, what does that mean for you and the type of organization that you have? What does that gray area look like? So whether you're starting a psychedelic clinic or you're thinking about forming a religious organization around your spiritual use of a sacrament that might be a controlled substance, you need legal advice. These are not plug-and-play industries. There's no clear legal framework or set of rules to play by. It's all still in development. When we talk about how to operate inside of a legally gray area, we often talk about regulatory compliance. Well, how do you comply with regulations that don't exist? You have to be strategic. You have to be inventive and think about what are parallel industries you can look at. My clients don't want to simply be compliant. They want to inspire. They want to motivate. They want to build empires. They want to build movements. And regulatory compliance often takes a back burner to that kind of passion, which is why I love what I do. I am not the person who's going to stand in front of you and lead the movement, but I am the person who wants to help the leader find a way to do so without risking their entire livelihood, the livelihood of their partners, their children, their family, their friends. As laws change and we get maybe a clearer pathway, your foundation, your regulatory framework that you have created for yourself matters. It leads your path forward. To build that foundation, you need the right legal paperwork. You need an IP strategy. You need to know how to look around regulatory corners and be able to pivot quickly when they change in a direction you weren't expecting. If you're a founder, if you're an advocate, if you're a leader in a movement in the alternative wellness space, this moment's for you. What is your biggest burning legal question? What's your biggest fear? I'm used to operating and advising in a gray area, and I would love to help you get your business on the path forward that feels maybe not risk-free, but manageable to you. Leave your biggest fears in the comments, and I'm going to do my best to address them in the next episode.